I pulled into the driveway on a Thursday afternoon in late October, 22 days on the road. Cincinnati to Portland, Portland down to Tucson, then back across through Texas. My back was stiff, my coffee had gone cold somewhere around Amarillo, and all I wanted was to sit on the porch and watch the light go down over the east field. I saw the sign before I even turned off the engine. It wasn't large, just a standard yard sign, white with red lettering. Sold. Planted right there at the edge of my own property line, maybe 10 feet from the fence I'd repaired myself 3 summers ago. I sat in the truck for a while. I didn't get out. I didn't call anyone. I just looked at that sign the way you look at something that doesn't make sense yet, waiting for your brain to catch up with your eyes. The farmhouse was still there. The barn was still there. Everything looked exactly the same as when I'd left, except for that one word, staked into the ground like it had always belonged there. I went inside, made a drink I didn't touch, sat in the chair by the window. My son Marcus had been handling things while I was en route. That was the arrangement we'd had for 2 years. He had a key, knew the property, helped manage the small rental income from the back acre. I trusted him completely. He was 31 years old, and I'd given him every opportunity I never had. I called him that evening. He picked up on the second ring, which I've thought about many times since. "Hey, Dad, you back?" "I'm back," I said. "There's a sign in the front yard." A pause. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds. "Yeah, I was going to call you about that. It's a long story. I'll come by this weekend and explain everything." "All right," I said, and I hung up. That was the moment I understood something had happened that couldn't be explained over the weekend. You don't put a sold sign on a man's land and then ask for the weekend to explain it. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a decision, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I wasn't even angry. Not yet. What I felt was something quieter and colder than anger. I felt the specific weight of betrayal, the kind that comes from someone who knows exactly how much something cost you and sells it anyway. I'd bought that land when Marcus was 4 years old. I'd made the final mortgage payment the year he graduated high school. I'd told him that story more than once. He knew what that farm meant. He knew what 22 years of long-haul routes looked like when you add them up. He knew, and he'd done it anyway. I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't make a single call in anger, and I didn't go looking for him. I just sat with it, the way you sit with something serious before you decide what to do about it. By morning, I had decided. First thing Friday, I drove to the county recorder's office. I didn't call ahead. I just walked in, gave them the property address, and asked to see the current deed of record. The woman behind the counter was efficient and completely indifferent to whatever I was feeling, which I appreciated. She printed the document and slid it across the counter without a word. I read it standing there. The deed had been transferred 41 days earlier. The buyer was a property development LLC based out of Nashville. The sale price was listed. And there on the transfer document was a signature on the seller's line. My name in handwriting that was close but wasn't mine. That's when everything changed. This wasn't Marcus making a bad financial decision with shared assets. This wasn't some arrangement I'd forgotten about or miscommunicated. Someone had signed my name on a legal document without my knowledge or consent. That is a specific thing with a specific legal definition. I made a copy of the deed, paid the $2 fee, walked back to my truck. I called an attorney that afternoon. Not a friend, not someone I knew casually. I looked up property fraud attorneys in the county, found one with 30 years of experience, and made an appointment for Monday morning. I told no one. Marcus came by Saturday, like he'd said. He looked nervous, but he was holding it together. He sat across from me at the kitchen table and gave me what I imagine he'd spent the week rehearsing. He said the farm had been losing value as a rental property. He said a developer had approached him with a serious offer. He said he'd tried to reach me, and here he looked me in the eye. But the roots made communication difficult. "I made a judgment call," he said. "For the family." I nodded slowly. "You think you got a fair price?" He relaxed slightly at that. Yeah, Dad, I do. And I put the money somewhere safe. We can talk about. That's fine, I said. We'll sort it out. He stayed for about an hour. I fed him lunch. We talked about other things. When he left, he hugged me at the door and said he was glad I understood. He had no idea I already knew. I want to be clear about something. I've been asked since then how I sat through that conversation without saying what I knew, and the honest answer is that it wasn't difficult. Because the moment I saw that deed, Marcus stopped being someone I needed to convince of anything. He became someone I needed to document. There's a difference. Monday morning, I sat across from the attorney with the copied deed, 3 years of property tax receipts in my name, the original mortgage payoff letter, and a photograph I'd taken of the sold sign the morning after I arrived home, time-stamped on my phone. The attorney looked at everything carefully. Then he looked at me. This signature isn't yours? No, I said. Did you authorize anyone to sign on your behalf? No. He sat back. Then what you have here is deed fraud, forgery of a legal document. That's a felony in this state. He asked if I wanted to pursue it criminally, civilly, or both. I told him, I wanted the property back, and I wanted it done correctly. He said, then let me get started. The unexpected part, the detail I hadn't anticipated, came 3 days later when the attorney's office called to tell me they'd done a title search on the development LLC that had purchased the land. It was a legitimate company. They'd bought in good faith. They had no knowledge the signature was forged, which meant the legal action wasn't against the buyer, it was entirely against Marcus. The certified mail arrived at Marcus's apartment on a Wednesday morning, 6 weeks after I'd first seen that sign. I know it was a Wednesday because the attorney's office called me to confirm delivery. I was on a route, somewhere outside of Nashville, which felt appropriate, when my phone showed the confirmation. I pulled over for a few minutes, sat with it. I didn't feel satisfaction exactly. What I felt was the specific relief of a thing being made honest that had been made dishonest. That's different from winning. It's more like a correction. The documents Marcus received outlined a civil suit for deed fraud, a criminal complaint filed with the county sheriff's office, and a formal request for a full accounting of the sale proceeds, including where the money had gone in the 41 days since the transfer. His attorney contacted mine 4 days later. There was no dramatic confrontation. There was no phone call where I told him what I thought of him. There were negotiations between 2 legal representatives, and eventually there was a settlement that included a full financial restitution, a recorded deed reversal, and an agreement that the development company, who cooperated fully once, they understood the situation, would be compensated and withdraw their claim to the property. Got the farm back. Marcus got a criminal record and a debt that will follow him for years. I've spoken to him once since then. He called me from a number I didn't recognize, about 4 months after the settlement. I let it ring through to voicemail. He left a message that was mostly silence and then an apology that was mostly about himself. I haven't called back. There are people who ask me if I regret how it ended, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I feel guilty that my own son has a felony on his record because of something I chose to pursue legally, and the honest answer is no. Not because I stopped loving him, but because the moment you forge a man's name on the deed to land he drove a truck for 22 years to own, you've already made the decision about how it ends. I just made sure the ending was accurate. The farm is quiet in October. It's always been quiet in October. I sit on that porch and watch the light go down over the east field, same as I always have. The sign is gone. It's been gone for months, but I still sometimes see exactly where it was staked into the ground. I leave it unmarked on purpose. Some reminders don't need to be visible to do.